thank you very much for accepting our invitation to talk about green skills. You as an expert in this field, I would like to open up our discussion with a very broad question. What are green skills, and where are nowadays used to, in what kind of professions? Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to talk with you. That's as you mentioned, this is a very broad question, but to help structure our thoughts about that, one of the concepts that we use at the European Training Foundation is to divide it into 3 dimensions. So the first dimension is the what we refer to as a green competence. So basically all that is linked to education for sustainability, embracing sustainability, being able to foresee better futures, the sense of individual political agency, and other skills related to political agency. And so that's one part which we measure or track or address through what we call the Green Competence Framework, which is one of the tools that the European Commission put together as a follow-up of the European Green Deal. So that's one dimension. And then the other one would be basically the technical skills linked to green technology, excuse me. So green tech skills, the ability to, I don't know, design a solar photovoltaic system, for example. That would be one of them. The skills related to the installment or maintenance of windmills or or heat pumps or any green technology that reduces our carbon emissions or the waste that we produce. And thirdly, what we call transversal skills. And those are the foundational skills that you will require in order to develop the green technical skills. So, for example, we find that the majority of green jobs, strictly speaking, green jobs, require that you have a pretty strong basis in STEM and ICT, science, technology, engineering, math, and information technology. These are required in order for you to develop the green technical skills. So the combination of these 3 things basically make up a broad group of skills that we can refer to as green skills. And the European Training Foundation has a number of documents on its website, which can be utilized to better understand that through visuals and simple language. So I would certainly invite the audience to take a look at our website.
Yeah, we will definitely leave the links in the description of this video. What can professionals in all fields nowadays can do? So we can talk about a change or a skill, further learning, of course, lifelong learning. Would include that. So actually not talking about the new jobs coming or the new skills required, but the skills that have to or updated or a measure of reskilling, how professionals nowadays can deal with this.
That's a really good question, and I want to take a step back before I answer that, just to give a bird's eye view of what is happening to the labor markets as the green transition accelerates in various economies. So what we see is that you have, it's a bit schematic, but for the needs of this interview, I'll use it. You can divide up jobs by brown, green, or white, let's say. So when it comes to brown jobs, largely linked to the fossil fuel industry, basically the jobs that pollute most. Well, those clearly, as a result of environmental regulation and the various commitments that governments have taken, not to mention the Paris Agreement, for example, but there's others, of course. Well, we see that these jobs are actually phasing out, and there's a decline in employment in these sectors. And we also see that there's a growth in the green sectors, not to mention renewable energy or heating and air conditioning and waste management and water management. These are areas where there is a net growth of employment. But these are two extremes, because what is statistically most relevant is in fact the middle bit, the part where the jobs that are not strictly green, not strictly brown, they're in the middle, and they're not traditionally associated with a greener future, yet they are part of it. And what we see is that the bulk, in fact, of the monumental task of modernizing and updating occupational profiles actually happens in between. So it's jobs that already exist, that have, in some cases have been existing for decades, if not centuries. And these jobs are changing. These jobs are becoming, you need to perform them, these occupations differently. And let me give you an example. A car mechanic, we've had car mechanics for decades. Well, now they need to also learn how to maintain electric engines. So they're still car mechanics, but their job is completely different now. Yet they're still maintaining vehicles. So that's one example. The other one would be plumbers. We've had plumbers for centuries, but now they also need to know how to operate heat pumps or some of the most recent developments in home heating and air conditioning. And so their job is the same, but the technology that they use is very different. So they need to basically learn differently. If you're a learner, if you want to go into this sector, you will need to have a different learning program. And for those who are, like, let's say, mid-career workers already in that sector, well, they need to upskill to understand the new technology that is utilized in their domain. And so these are just two examples, but actually, if you look at the impact of the green transition on the entire labor market, you find that these are the jobs that are statistically most relevant in terms of how much needs to change in the education system.
But you mentioned very well this middle segment. For example, for us, managers, cultural managers, communicators, so all these types of jobs that do not require necessarily direct confrontation with the work. So actually, it's on computers mainly. It's for example, it's also the part of, for example, a festival. It requires all kinds of jobs. What about these types of jobs? How can do you need a reskill, an upskill, or a completely different approach?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. And you're right. These, all jobs are concerned. I cannot think of one single job that is not affected by this. And in terms of, I mean, okay, let's say that you're an occupation. Let's pick the example of a web designer. You would think traditionally, well, that's not really a green job. It's not really a brown job neither. But in fact, any occupation, including web designers, need to understand what is the green transition, need to understand a little bit about, more than a little bit, in fact, about climate change, climate action, what is the carbon emissions linked to their operations? How can they reduce that? How can they reduce the energy input into what they do? I mean, a lot of sometimes people forget that working online is not carbon emissions free. There is a cost to it. And understanding that and understanding how you can do things more efficiently so that you use less energy, produce less waste, etc., etc. So this concerns, web designers, bankers, accountants. For example, accountants need, but traditionally they've been asked to look at the financial flows of an organization. Now they need to use the carbon print of that organization. Also, we now talk about carbon accounting, and this is a skill that they need to pick up on the go, if I may say. If you're a mid-career accountant, you should upskill and educate yourself on carbon accounting. And if you're a learner looking to enter this field of work, then presumably your learning program will include carbon accounting also, just to give you an example.
So actually, in this middle between brown and green professions, so actually the majority of them, what would they require? Would they require like a kit, a learning kit, so that you, for example, in your profession, what would you follow? So actually, you begin with your tools, your laptop. Okay, is it consuming more or less, and then you take into consideration what am I working from home, am I working from the office, am I going by bike? So actually, can we talk about actually it's not necessarily only strictly professional kit, it's more like a quality of life in general kit. So actually, how would you approach, if you are genuinely interested in picking up green skills, how would you approach this idea? Where do you start? How do you look? Do you have like a kit, like a frame where you put on your work? How would you do grassroots?
Well, I mean, at the level of workers and learners, I would say there's two dimensions. The first one would be to educate yourself on sustainability, understand climate change, understand climate action, understand Earth systems, and understand the environmental impact of your occupation. What you do, what is the environmental impact of all your decisions? And this is mostly covered through education for sustainability. And then, of course, there would be some modules or dimensions that are very specific to that occupation, and that would not be, let's say, the same for different jobs. So one part is common, understanding climate change, climate action, Earth systems, that's common to everyone. Everybody should know that. The rest is different. The rest applies strictly to the occupation that you do. And of course, if you're an accountant, or if you are a car mechanic, or if you're a web designer, you would need to see it differently. You need to approach it a little bit differently. And in order to simplify, if I may say, the European Commission has put together a number of tools, notably, and I just mentioned them, but I'll mention them again now, the Green Competence Framework, which is all to do with developing a green mindset and helping you process the environmental impact of what you do on a daily basis. But also developing a sense of political agency and the idea that you can, at your individual level, make a difference, because lots of people, as we know, think it doesn't matter because it's not really up to them. Well, it is also. There is an individual responsibility. Now, when it comes to the technical part, that would be specific to the occupation, and you would probably need to be a little bit more specific and seek for professional help on that.
We were previously discussing about these old professions, as I call them, that actually would jump rather easily, in my opinion, to a green upskill or reskill. We were talking about this social enterprise initiatives, about mending, repairing, like repair cafe initiatives, which are also this type of initiative in Romania as well. How would they apply, for example, this type of approach of why not circular economy How would you see this?
Yeah, well, so part of the green transition, as is obvious to most observers now, is to consume less, because we consume too much. I don't need to go into that. And so part of that change would be to use objects and products for longer, and therefore repair them in a circular economy thinking, or at least make sure that they get fully recycled or reused. And of course, this creates employment opportunities, as you mentioned yourself. I mean, let's think of people who repair shoes, people who repair furniture, people who will help you fixing your electrical appliances, people fixing bikes. These can be considered green jobs in many ways. And when it comes to these social, and often, as you pointed out yourself, these are also social enterprises that make sure they contribute to their local community as well, through inclusion or through social responsibility. So these are clearly an important part of the answer to how we shift towards a green economy, by establishing the supply chains and for a functional circular economy, which implies that you repair things and use them for longer. Not to mention phones, for example. If you look at the numbers on e-waste in Europe, it's quite scary, really. And the time that we keep our phones is really too short when we do have the technology to make them last longer. These are commercial choices. If we can develop a local circular economy that helps you keep your objects longer, then we consume less, and therefore it's less of an impact on our energy requirements, on our mineral requirements, and it reduces our environmental degradation. So these are clearly initiatives that should be supported.
Actually, by you as a person taking into account all these changes and the environment around you, you can upskill yourself in the green skill. Actually, I would like also to point out. I just recently read about this figure from International Labor Organization of 8.4 million new jobs by 2030. That will be new jobs. Of course, they will have to include the green skill dimension. But what can actually the teachers from now do in this matter, because they are not themselves skilled in having themselves these green skills? How can they teach the next generation about this? So actually, in this direction, in your broad experience at the Commission, at the European Commission or at national levels, is there an approach for this type of inserting in the curriculum or at the policy level? How do you see this transfer of green skills to teachers that can be taught further on?
Yeah, there's a number of really important and inspiring practices as a result of the European Commission work on rolling out the European Green Deal. And this includes a number of initiatives linked to education, of course, and the one I already mentioned, the Green Competence Framework. We did not have that before, and we now have a clear framework that helps you address, design, and understand how to develop a green mindset. So we already got this framework. And then on top of that, there's a number of directives, and I won't go into their names and numbers, but certainly there's a push for member states to take immediate action and ensure that the learning programs through different levels of schooling include education for sustainability as well as green technical skills, although that's more specific to certain programs. But overall we find that it's at preschool, primary school, and secondary school that you really can develop a green mindset. I mean, this is it's a life journey, of course, but the sensitizing children to nature-based solutions and to respect of nature and understanding how nature works, you can do that right from preschool, primary, and secondary. And so,
one last question. I've seen you in a previous intervention on the subject of debunking green skills myths. So I said, oh, there are already myths about the green skills. Some people never heard of green skills, and now there are some myths. Can you pinpoint why there are already some myths formed around the green skills? I mean, when did they have the time to do that? And what would be if they are still on, and if you want to just pinpoint one or two?
Yeah, well, I mean, myth, this was a communication exercise. I would say misunderstandings maybe is a better term. For example, you will find that lots of people think that green skills only are required by high-level occupations such as, I don't know, a renewable energy engineer. And that these are the categories of occupations that require green skills, not the rest. Well, that's completely false, as we have established throughout this conversation. That's a classic myth that we hear regularly, and that we try to debunk as often as we can. That's possibly the main one. The other thing would be that green skills are only related to green technology, and that green skills are basically the ability to operate green technology. And we've also established that that's not true. Clearly, somebody who works in a renewable energy plant would need to know how to operate that technology. That goes without saying. However, it goes much, much further than that. And as we have discussed, occupations which are not, strictly speaking, in the green sectors, such as accountants or web designers and bankers, they also need to develop a green mindset and understand climate action, because their decisions affect our collective impact on the green transition.
Romain Boitard, thank you very much for your intervention and food for thought. Hopefully we'll meet soon. Good luck with all your long-term advocacy that you are doing on this idea, and hope we cross our professional path very soon.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure talking to you.